All right, well, All right, welcome to the Rocket City Podcast. We have a few announcements to make. So our third co-host, John, is stepping down for his own other career opportunities, which is okay. He's still a friend of the family. And today we are filming our third episode. And today is me and Dillon again. And today we're actually going to start talking about outer space stuff.
Yeah, we said this was going to be a space podcast, and I tried to start the first episode with the Wright brothers and, kind of what happened before space, and then now we're going to, actually get into, some weird theories with space and kind of, ideas of, maybe what ifs and that different types of stuff. So, yeah. But we're still going to have John on, probably as a guest and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yes.
So, not a big deal.
No. He's an amazing person.
All right. So, you ready for this, Cody?
Yeah. Can I say it? Bear versus eagle.
Bear versus eagle. Yes, that's right. And what do we mean by that? We mean, of course, the space race. The eagle being the American mascot. And, of course... America. Yeah. And the bear being the Soviet Union mascot.
Soviet Russia.
Yeah. So obviously it comes down to bear versus eagle. Who would win? I think that could be a good fight. Scrappy.
Scrappy? Scrappy.
Yeah, scrappy. I think that, an eagle probably fights dirty. It would go for the eyes of the bear. And, it'd fight dirty because, it knows that, the bear's got, 300 pounds on it. The eagle probably weighs 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And eagles can get big.
Yeah,
let's not discount eagles.
Yeah.
Eagles are cool, but bears are a lot bigger than eagles. So, at the end
some
of the day.
eagles can dive in water and get fish. They can.
That's probably how this whole feud started. Was a bear was going to get its dinner. What happens next? It's got a fish in its mouth. Eagle swoops down, takes it right out of its mouth. Unsuspecting bear starts the whole space race right there.
There you go. So space race, as you all know, I'm not going to go down the whole path. Space race happens after World War II. Who are the two superpowers? Soviet Union and America. And they get a lot of the Nazi scientists, and they're trying to race towards outer space because outer space is the next frontier, and we're reaching, further and beyond. The V2 rocket developed by the Germans actually goes to America. I don't think Soviet Union actually got any V2 rockets. I might be wrong there. But with Operation Paperclip and Warner von Braun coming over, and a bunch of the rocket scientists, and they helped the Americans build more and more rockets. Redstone ballistic missile evolves to the Redstone rocket. If you ever seen Hidden Figures, the Redstone rocket, that's all about the Redstone rocket. And Alan Shepard launching. Alan Shepard is the very first American in outer space. All that starts, though, before that, with the launch of Sputnik 1 by the Soviet Union. So they beat us to a lot of first. With very first satellite in outer space, very first animal to orbit the planet, Laika. Terrier
Did
dog.
Laika orbit?
Yes, Laika orbited the planet, but did not return. Even though we thought she returned, and there was propaganda, and they used a fake Laika in pictures, and we didn't find out actually till after.
She had very close likeness.
She was, yes, very close likeness. Actually, interesting thing about Laika, she was a dog off the streets of Moscow. They thought that a tough dog that was surviving in the streets of Russia would be able to last out, and they thought more toughness instead of just
a pampered dog that has lived a very easy life. That makes sense. A dog that's had to fight to live.
Yeah.
That would, fight to live in space.
Yeah.
Totally.
And the start of that. So, from Alan Shepard, though, JFK's famous speech that we are going to go to the moon by the end of this decade. We're going to try to accomplish the impossible. I totally botched that, but what he says in that speech.
It was a little bit cooler
But
sounding.
It was.
Yeah.
1961, Alan Shepard goes up. We get to the moon by 1969. That is 8 years.
Yeah, but he said
Saturn
the end of
V.
the decade. They made it by the end of the decade. I mean, by the skin of their teeth, but they made it.
Yes,
you know?
they did. Yes, they did.
And that was kind of the whole space race, goal, the whole objective. Some would argue that, but that's what we get taught in history lessons today is that the space race, the whole objective was who could get to the moon first. The moon was the final goal.
It was the cream of the crop.
Yes. Well, some people say that the moon is made out of cheese, so the cheese of the crop.
Cheese of the crop. Well, what you have to say, what would happen if Russia beat us there with their N-1 rocket that blew up 4 times? But how would they? What if they perfected it? What if Korolev never got sent to the gulags and he survived and he helped build a better rocket instead of putting 30 engines in the bottom of that darn thing and they got to the moon before us?
Yeah, I feel like, we'll get into that, but 30 rockets on the bottom of 30 engines on the bottom of their rocket.
Yes.
We only had like 5, 6.
We had 5. It was
5 on the Saturn V.
5. It was
On the first
12 total.
first stage. I'm just talking first stage.
Yeah,
Because at the bottom of theirs was like 30 on their
Yeah.
first stage.
And
So,
our engines
that
are
might be
bigger.
part of the reason why they messed up. Just make bigger rockets. Soviet Union. Duh.
It was about the same size.
Yeah, but I'm saying that
Yeah.
the engines should have been bigger instead of just more.
Yeah.
You know.
Good point. Good point.
Just, scaled up. Anyway.
Scale up.
Yeah, so we kind of want to talk about what would have happened if the Soviet Union won the space race.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of speculation on what would have happened if the Soviet Union did win. Because, when we won the space race, we went to the moon, 6 times or landed at least. And
Yeah, we went to the moon more.
well, yeah,
But yeah,
landed on the moon 6 times. And 6 times after Apollo 11. Apollo 11 basically ended the space race. Then we went there 6 more times. By the time we got to Apollo 17 or 18 was the last one. Pretty much by the time we got to Apollo 17, the American public were like, we've already made it to the moon. Why do we keep going back? Like, didn't they kind of figure out everything they needed to know there? So, I think that was part of the reason why we lost the funding, because there were more Saturn V rockets built to keep going back to the moon, but they didn't get the funding they had originally.
Yeah, 18, 19, and 20 were planned, but they canceled them due to lack of funding, and the public interest was really just not there. And they wanted to start working with low Earth orbit with the shuttle program and stuff. So
I think that just like a testament to how fast, even 50 years ago, you take things for granted. Is that okay? We've made it to the moon 6 times later. Well, why do we keep going back to the moon? Who cares? Why are they going to the moon? Well, we could have built bases on the moon. We could have done a lot of things on the moon. We could have a permanent, army base there. We could have people going there like they go to the International Space Station. All kinds of crazy stuff. There's so many more reasons to go back to the moon. It's only a 3.5 day trip. It's not that far. I remember when I first found out about that, it was 3.5 days. I thought it was way longer. 3.5 days. If you get off for spring break, you could get there and get back. It's only a week trip. That's not too far. It'd take you longer to get to California, from here at least. And yeah, so I mean that's really not that far. And I feel like if we had kept going back and we hadn't lost that funding, just like we could have just done so much more. Yes, what was it, Apollo 16, where they were just like running around racing the rovers and just kind of doing dumb stuff. Was that 16?
that was 16, but that's not. They did do experiments and stuff.
They did experiments, but they were goofing off a little bit.
They weren't necessarily goofing off.
Okay, that's just what I've
To
heard.
my knowledge, it's taught kind of. They weren't goofing off. I mean, Charlie Duke fell on his back, and then John.
That's because he was trying to jump the highest anybody's ever jumped on the moon.
Yeah, but John Young, I mean, they did do a lot of experiments
Okay.
and stuff. So no, they weren't just goofing off, dude.
They didn't form a strike on the moon and were like, what are you guys gonna do? You know,
I mean,
how are you gonna fire us? We're already here. You know, so
that would have been interesting.
that'd be funny.
Yeah.
I heard that something similar happened to that on the International Space Station, where they like formed a strike for like
No,
hours.
it's actually on the Skylab.
Skylab.
So the last Skylab mission, yeah.
There's
well,
only like
it's-
3, right?
No, it's so there's 4 Skylab missions. Yeah, that's the third manned one. So
Okay.
the first mission to go up sent Skylab up. And
Skylab being what? In case
Skylab
you don't know.
is the very first space station America sent up. Actually, so we went to the moon first. Russia beat us to the very first space station put in outer space. Salyut 1, or his military name, or Almarez 1. But Skylab was sent up after that by America.
That's right. And I feel like the reason they beat us to the space stations was because, we were still, working on sending people to the moon at that point, and maybe right around the same time, if not just a couple years before.
Yeah, Skylab went up right after that.
Yeah, so like we were still working on sending people to the moon. Obviously, the Soviet Union was like, we're not going to make it to the moon. We might as well beat them to something else. But one of my favorite quotes is that Russia does it first, we do it better.
Wait. Who says that quote? Do you know?
Me. I say that quote.
Officially coined by Dillon.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us about the moon stuff.
Well,
you think a moon base?
Well,
What
there
you
was
got? What
there
you
was
got?
like a little article there about by BBC's Christopher Riley. He speculated that if Russia had landed on the moon first, that we'd have bases there by now. Because, like we said, Russia does it first. We got to do it better. So if they had landed on the moon, we would have to outdo them. We'd be like, oh, well, they landed on the moon. Well, we're going to be the first one to have a moon base there. So it's like we keep trying to up them, and it's like I think that if we had lost the space race, that the space race never would have ended, because how well does America accept defeat?
Not very well. Not very well at
No.
all. And on that note, can we jump back just a second?
Totally.
Hold that point, because I think if Russia landed on the moon first, they probably would have took their fine shot at tequila. Guess what we did when we landed on the moon?
What did we do there, Cody?
We lit up a freaking cigar. There's a whole video of Mission Control lighting up all cigars. They are all lighting up cigars once we landed on the moon.
So this is you
And-
celebrating the moon landing 50 years ago.
Yes,
Right
I mean,
now.
I didn't really get to do that. I wasn't born yet, so I'm doing it now.
So you're getting out your fattest cigar here,
Uh-huh.
and
As a fatter one, but this is for they don't all have fat ones.
Oh, okay.
They're all,
okay.
So
So
Yeah.
in talking about the moon landing and how they all smoked cigars when they landed, which is obviously what you do. If you smoke a cigar when you have a baby, and you smoke a cigar when you get married, you're gonna smoke a cigar when you land on the moon. It's just obvious, I would be surprised if you didn't, So
celebration.
that's right. So we actually had plans for bases on the moon.
No way.
Yeah, so we had plans to have a military base. The NSA actually recently declassified a whole paper that was called Project Horizon. Project Horizon outlined how the U.S. Army was going to have a permanent residence on the moon. Like, we had a whole plan lined up, like down to the dollar, how much it was going to cost, what it was going to look like, what all the kinds of things it would have.
Do you have all that information?
I don't have all the information, but it is out there. And you can, but some of the stuff that I have is, we actually had plans for a nuclear power plant on the moon.
Whoa.
This is back in the day when solar panels weren't that great.
Yeah.
Solar panels did exist. Solar panels existed on Skylab, So we had solar panels at the time. They probably just weren't amazing. So it wouldn't make sense for us to power a whole base, at least a military base, with just solar. So, what's the next thing that doesn't take a whole bunch of weight and take a whole bunch of, everything else? It would be nuclear. nuclear, and it doesn't, you don't have to worry about carbon emissions on the moon, or dumping. There's no atmosphere. It's just gonna float away. You can pump right into the atmosphere. It doesn't even matter because there is none. It'll just go out to outer space. I never thought about that, and that's actually,
it's interesting.
That's a good idea for the moon. Is that you can pump all you want into the outside of your base because you're fine.
Well, nuclear technology it's not finished technology. Like since it's so. So there's a point made by this business guy. Man, what's that guy's name? I won't try to quote him. That I don't know.
Doesn't matter. What did he say?
But he was talking about how nuclear technology is not finished, and the reason why is because if the steam engine actually blew up, we wouldn't be using the steam engine anymore. We finished the technology. The nuclear energy blows up. What we know why, atomic bombs and stuff like that. So nuclear fusion technically is like its finishing stage, which we're still working on. But there's an idea proposed that we should build a bunch of nuclear power plants on the moon, because if anything bad happens, this blows up on the moon. All that, which would be bad because we couldn't go to the moon. But it's not like we could go to the dark side of the moon anyway. We don't go to the dark side of the moon. It doesn't even face Earth. There's a lot.
But it's not always dark. That is a common misconception, is that it's always dark. Because the moon does also rotate.
Yes.
It does see the sunlight.
Yes.
And just because we don't see it doesn't necessarily mean it's always dark.
Yes.
But I think we could go to the dark side of the moon. We probably wouldn't.
We have technically.
Well, yes,
with probes.
Yeah, we've sent
rovers.
Rovers, probes, that kind of stuff have went around, and I'm pretty sure that we've mapped the dark side of the moon. So
part of it, yeah. I heard.
So obviously, when we had the Apollo missions, there were an astronaut that had to stay inside the capsule that orbited the moon. So, we had at least 6 astronauts see the dark side of the moon. That's kind of crazy if you think about it. Only 6 Americans have really actually ever personally seen the dark side of the moon.
Wait, take that back just a sec. So technically, Apollo 10 has been to the moon, and they went around. That was the dress rehearsal.
Oh, that's
so
right.
those
That's
3 went to the moon. And I think Apollo, don't quote me on this either, Apollo 9, I think, went around the moon as well.
Okay, so more than 6.
More than 6.
Maybe up to 12.
At least up to 30 people have been to the moon and back.
Okay, so a lot of, quite a few people have seen the dark side of the moon, but, not in comparison to how many people there are in the United States. So a very, very, very small percentage. So they actually had plans for a nuclear power plant to be able to power it up, to be able to run everything that they needed on the dark side, or not on the dark side, but on the moon. And they had all this kind of stuff. They even had an isolation room for astronauts that are going crazy.
What?
So we had an isolation room that, so if you get, moon madness, as I just coined the phrase.
You coined another phrase, moon madness.
Moon madness. If you get moon madness, you don't want to be around with all the other astronauts, obviously. We're going to want to lock you up. Maybe if you go a little bit crazy, in other senses. Even if you're not just getting moon madness, maybe if, maybe we can use it as a jail cell too. If somebody commits the first moon crime, we could lock them up in there, keep them safe from everybody else.
Oh my gosh, imagine if Russia made it to the moon and we made it to the moon, and they built bases and we built bases, and we just start jailing them in their isolation chamber stuff and freaking fight on the moon. I don't know.
That would be cool. Totally. We got the moon wars.
That could have potentially have happened if what you're saying, if all these plans worked out.
Well, actually, part of the reason why Project Horizon never would have actually worked, we had the plans, they were drawn up, and they were there, and the military had them, but they would have been so expensive that they were pretty much unfeasible. But if we had tapped into that military money, maybe we could have funded it.
Moolah.
Because, NASA's funding compared to the military funding is pretty small. And, if we could have combined them, how we're pretty much doing now with the Space Force, is, something that we could have been doing a long time ago. And I remember we don't want to talk about something about the Space Force. They're trying to figure out where the headquarters of the Space Force might be.
right here in Huntsville, Alabama, potentially.
There is speculation that Space Force headquarters might be right here in the Rocket City.
Speculation, so that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. We're not saying
A lot
it
of
is.
things are happening
But
here, though.
yes, there are a lot of things happening. But there already is a God, the Air Force has a space command center or whatever. They have a space command center, and there's people on this board, and they work with all the space stuff.
Well, yeah, we do have Marshall, Space Flight Center here that is on a military base.
Yeah.
We have, all of where we were building engines here and all of that kind of stuff. So, there's not a lot of cities where we're building rockets and engines and also controlling them and having a say-so in what goes on once they make it out of space. Because with Kennedy Center in Florida, all they do is launch them. So once they launch them, it's bye-bye birdie. It goes over to Houston.
Yeah. So technically not everything, though. So they do have a bunch of communication satellites and stuff that they work from Florida, too.
Well, the
But
majority.
the majority, like the manned missions and all that. Yeah.
So yeah, there's only a couple cities that it's going to make the most sense for it to be picked from. I hope it's the Rocket
You can
City.
only hope because the FBI is moving here too, and then a bunch of this.
But is it the FBI? Is all of the FBI moving here? It's probably just like a good portion of it, right?
I heard it's a very good portion.
Okay,
It's like a good. It's a lot.
maybe they'll just all move here. Maybe the whole FBI will just be here.
Yeah.
Um,
And if the Space Force moves here in the Space Command Center, technically that means the Air Force is moving here too. So that's a lot. But that's an Army base. So we don't really know. It's just a bunch of speculation. Definitely watch Huntsville's on the map. You should definitely watch it because it's the next 10 years. Who knows what's going to happen here? It's crazy.
FBI, you don't want to be in Washington, D.C. The traffic's terrible. The infrastructure's horrible. You can't get anywhere. It takes you want to go 2 miles, takes you 25 minutes, takes you 30 minutes. Here, I'm making it across town 15 minutes tops. You want to move here. I mean, yes, there would be more people and it would be more traffic. But our roads are newer. We got some interstates, we got some highways. We're not driving on, 150-year-old roads and at least 150-year-old road maps. So, FBI, if you're listening, which you always are, check it out. Think about moving everybody here. So with the Space Force as well. Tell them.
He's promoting Huntsville hardcore right now.
I am.
Everybody freaking move here, right?
That's right. I mean,
Some
sure.
people would disagree with you. They don't want the people moving here.
Yeah, some people don't want people moving here, but I think it's cool. I think that I want as much things going on here as possible.
True.
More people in the Rocket City means more viewers, more listeners. They want to know what's going on in the Rocket City, and you're not going to hear it anywhere better than right here on the Rocket City podcast.
Yes.
So, that's not necessarily true, but we have some pretty cool insight. So also in 1967, 2 years before Apollo 11, before we landed on the moon, the Soviet Union also had plans to permanently inhabit the moon.
Really?
Yes, they had plans that would also like a very similar moon base. So if they had landed there on the moon, I mean, they would have had they had so many different crazy plans. One of the craziest one I found was they had a self-burying rover.
Wow.
That you would live inside of. I guess to protect you from the best way to protect you from the solar radiation was to be underground. So this rover could actually bury itself in a matter of hours. Completely bury it to where you could be underneath the ground and you could be protected from radiation and you could have be more protected. And they had all kinds of plans, but also a lot of them obviously would be very, very, very expensive. But I think that if Soviet Union had won, I don't really think that their space administration gets dictated off of popular opinion.
Yeah.
So they if they don't care if as far as I know, they don't really care if the general population cares about whether or not they're going back and forth to the moon.
Oh well, kind of yes. I know that with like Alexei Leonov and just oh my gosh, blanking. First man in space, Yuri Gagarin.
Oh.
They were national heroes, and they really use that as propaganda and like try to influence their people to really.
Is that a negative thing? I always see propaganda as a negative thing. Is there positive propaganda?
I think there is. Yeah,
I feel like it always has a negative connotation though.
The word definitely does, but
so maybe you could have said they helped influence the people into being more excited about that their tax money is going to space.
All right, let me make a proposal though. What they should have put in both those budgets is we should have sent an eagle up, and they should have sent a bear up. And they should pit them together.
Now that makes sense.
That probably wouldn't have been that much money. I mean, so
you send up a couple dogs, a couple monkeys, Why not a bear? Why not an eagle? I think that set them on either side of the little capsule or your pretty big capsule. Plenty of cameras. Have them on opposite sides in chambers that unlocked once they got into low gravity, microgravity. Bam, that's a good fight because they both have to get acclimated to the microgravity very quickly, but they also are obviously going to duke it out because, bears, eagles, both very hostile creatures. And they're both in a, hostile environment. So I think that makes sense. Do you think, would a bird be able to fly around? Would it be able to flap its wings and move in a microgravity environment? I guess it just depends on...
I don't know for sure, and I don't know if they've ever done that. I know they've already brought spiders up, and the spiders would redo their webs and learn. The fish were very confused when they brought them up too.
I heard that within 2 weeks of the spiders being up in Skylab, right?
No, it was like ISS.
Okay, it was ISS. In the ISS, that within 2 weeks that they learned how to grow 3-dimensional webs.
Yeah.
Here on Earth, obviously, they're just 2-dimensional. Up there, they were making 3-dimensional webs. It only took them 2 weeks to get used to the microgravity, and all of a sudden, they were building webs they'd never built before because they didn't have the restrictions of gravity.
That's crazy.
What were you saying?
SpaceX just sent up. They've already sent mice up, but the SpaceX just sent some like mighty mice up or something.
Mighty mice.
Yeah, they have they're
genetically engineered.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe they use a little bit of.
I didn't read in detail.
But maybe it was one of those mice that they grew an ear on.
Yeah.
One of those mighty mice. Maybe they use it to make it super buff. That kind of stuff.
Something like that.
Stem cells. They were using stem cells to maybe if you take mice stem cells, you could bump up a hump.
I mean, they
pump
do
up a mice.
They do everything the mice though. I mean, they inject them with cocaine, heroin.
But that's because we're like the most similar to at least like brain wise, similar to mice.
Really?
Yeah, and like we have like all the same amount of organs and that kind of stuff. Obviously in a much smaller scale, but and I feel like people don't love mice, so nobody really cares how much testing gets done on them. So they're kind of just like a good neutral ground to where
the first Apollo missions, 11, 12, well not 13, they didn't land on the moon, and 14, they came back. So it took about a week. They would to go to the moon and get back 3.5 days, 3 days to get back. They spend 1 day on the moon to do all their experiments. Well, when they got back, they got into the MQF, the mobile quarantine facility units, because we didn't know if there was germs on the moon. They could have brought back
moon germs.
Yes, moon germs.
Oh man!
And so, but they had to stay in these MQFs for 2 weeks, so they couldn't talk to they could see their family members through like a window, but that's about it. So going to the moon, Apollo 11, 12, and 14 was a month requirement, whole month.
I mean, yeah, that's after you've gone through how many months of training?
Oh, years.
Probably years. Yeah. So, once you think it's over, it's like, oh, you still got a month, buddy. As soon as you're launching off, you got, was it like 10 days total to go to the moon and back for them to, They
trained for 2 weeks just in case if something happened.
Okay.
So that was the whole reason for Gemini and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. So, the point was that if birds can flap around inside of microgravity, I think they could because the air pressure is still the same. So they would still have to be able to like move that air underneath them to be able to move. I think they would be able to move. They just wouldn't be able to like control where they were going. I think they'd be able to like get going.
Maybe they've tried it and we just don't know. Who knows?
I feel like you wouldn't take a bird into a spacecraft just because it's the same reason you wouldn't have a bird inside your car.
Yeah, true.
They're not fun to be in small environments with.
Yeah.
You know.
Good point.
So probably not.
Russian moon base, American moon base. Oh, also, have you ever heard of the Nazi conspiracy of the Nazi moon base? That the Nazis actually made it to the moon, stuff like that, with the V2 rocket and the.
Wait. You think that there's conspiracies that the Nazis made it to the moon in the V2, a one-person rocket, and.
Not necessarily. So the V2 actually, but a lot of people don't know this, and you can look it up. There's V2 modifications. The V2 is actually like one of Von Braun rocket team had a bunch of other modifications to the V2 and like just designs. And there's like bigger versions. And so honestly, you know, the Nazis only had like less than a 10-year run, but there's modifications, and this conspiracy theories, they're all that anyway because of how fast they develop stuff and crazy stuff like that. But the conspiracy theories are talk about this in Nazi moon base and that like Hitler escaped to the moon. It's ridiculous. And but there's like some pictures they might have manipulated when they went from the moon missions that have like the swastika on some rocks and stuff. It's ridiculous. There's no way they did that. I mean,
that sounds ridiculous. Yeah. Somehow we always end up back on Hitler. So it's
Hitler's been brought up like every episode.
Yeah. I mean, oh well. You know, like you said, he was only in there 10 years, but they did a lot in 10 years. So
or less.
Yeah. And so
what other things did they have planned for this moon base? What are the Russian side? What else?
Well, the Russian side, they had just also multi-level bases.
Ooh.
They had plans for these multi-level bases.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you know, why necessarily you would want multi-level. I guess it would just be easier to build like one, you know, ground that you're going to build up on. Yeah. And, you know, it'd probably be easier to build up on the moon. Obviously, you know, you could probably build higher on the moon than you could here on Earth. Because there's a max height for buildings here because they'll topple over because of, you know, wind and gravity. You don't have those, you know, same problems on the moon.
Yeah, I think it would be more difficult because of like this potential debris. I think one idea that we're talking about multi-level is going underground. Yeah. So there's a lot. There's some moon base ideas. The digging in the ground with the rover. Yes. ESA actually has an idea where there's a rover that actually 3D prints new material and puts it on top of the habitat. So they build the habitat, then they take the moon soil and they 3D print it, compact it more, and they place it on top. You can like go and watch a video on this shit. And the ESA made it. The ESA, European Space Agency, this video and their ideas on that. But and it helps protect against the radiation and stuff. Yeah. That's another reason to dig into the moon because of the radiation. There's not an atmosphere to protect it, protect anybody from the radiation there. So
that makes sense. And you would think that it would just be easier, like just to find a cave, you know, and just to go straight into a cave. And
I don't know how many caves are actually on the moon, but
have you ever sseen the oldest movie on Netflix? It's like 1911. It's like I think it's From Earth to the Moon. It's like the movie of the
old Jules Verne's book.
Jules Verne's book. It's where they shot him in a cannon to the moon, and it's super goofy. And there's aliens on the moon when they get there, but it's hilarious. It's like I'm pretty sure it's the oldest, like not the movie that's been on Netflix the longest, but the oldest movie on Netflix. Like it's from like 1911 or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's like one of the first movies I think.
Probably
something like that.
Probably one of the first movies. I mean, quality's terrible.
I've heard of it.
So,
Well, it's one of the first movies.
So that's what I'm saying. It's probably one of the first. But like, I'm pretty sure there's got to be caves there. Maybe not necessarily, but I'm sure that maybe in some of the craters, like if you look on the side of the craters, that there'd be like a little bit of a cave there or something like that. Because if there's caves here on Earth, you would think that, I don't think that caves form because of. I guess caves normally form because of water.
Well, there was volcanic activity on the moon for a while. A lot, like this heat Cody and stuff. That's like all volcanic, or used to be volcanic, and it's. I thought that was interesting. I don't know the soil and archaeology stuff on that, but
that would make caves. So
potentially,
you would think. So if it all dried up, but so some other things is that. If Soviet Union had made it to the moon first, we might have actually used the Saturn V to its full potential.
What do you mean its full potential? I thought it goes to the moon.
Well, yes, it could go to the moon, but Wernher von Braun, his final destination was not the moon. That guy wanted to go to Mars. 50 years ago.
Makes sense.
He was trying to get to Mars.
He had a lot of designs.
And some people speculate that Saturn V could have made it to Mars. That it was overkill for the moon. That rocket itself could have already made it there. Obviously, you'd want a little bit bigger of a, capsule for your people because you wouldn't want to be sitting in one seat for months.
Yeah.
6 months. So obviously, the crew capsule would have to be a little bit bigger, but that's not the biggest weight on the Saturn V, so it wouldn't have to need much more rocket power. And so, if the Soviet Union had made it to the moon first, we might have had to outdo them by going to Mars. Not necessarily just building bases, but we're like, let's take it another step further. Let's go to Mars. And we just, take that 6-month journey all the way to Mars and maybe just did an EVA. Maybe just, hung out for a little bit and flew back. Probably not. You would hope not. But
maybe it's been for a day.
Just for a day, yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that is there's talk that JFK actually sat down with Wernher von Braun and like all the rocket scientists in NASA. And before he did his moon speech, and he was like, let's go to Mars. And NASA was like, whoa, chill. We need to go to the moon first. So apparently they thought that JFK, big dreamer JFK was, and apparently he actually wanted to try to go to Mars. Like he wanted to go for the biggest and best thing. And I've heard that this is true. Anyway, I'm not exactly sure the details or anything about that. But then after that, he granted NASA $1 billion in the 60s, which is a lot of money to get to the moon, and did the moon speech.
$1 billion is a lot of money, back then. Oh, yeah. What do they get? What do they get? $22 billion this year?
I was not off the top of my head. It's definitely.
I think it's $22 billion.
Is it inflation wise? It's definitely lower than $1 billion in like 1960.
Yeah,
because
gotta be.
Yeah, it's like It was like 0.5 of the national budget then.
Whoa,
now
really?
Now it's like. I don't know. It's way better in now than what it was like a few years ago.
But
they're increasing the budget.
Same thing. We would have made it to Mars. We made it there. Okay, we made it to Mars once. Let's go back to Mars. We make it there a second time, third time. American people are like, "Why are we going to Mars, man? Like we've already been there like twice. Like did we not see everything?"
Yeah,
and it's just a testament to how fast, like we said with the moon, how fast we get used to things. And it's like people nowadays is, there's speculation with the moon landings being faked, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is to me ridiculous because let's just
you want to know why? You want to get into that?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Okay, let's get into that. So the one reason they think it's fake is because after the moon missions, NASA copied over the film, which was a ridiculous move. And so a lot of the film was misplaced, but this was also, you got to really look at the context. And the thing is about public interest, which you keep bringing up, public interest drives a lot of the budget for NASA, it seems. and who's ever in office, it seems.
Sure.
So the defunding of NASA.
You're talking about being filmed over the Apollo 11 mission?
All of the films were filmed over at some point. Like apparently when they released the films after they were filmed over. They were filmed over for other missions, other like satellite. I don't even know for sure. You can go into detail by looking online, but you can even get like full access to the entire Apollo 11 clips and film.
Okay.
So that and they were filmed over, and NASA only released so many clips. You can go look up the majority of the film. So this started the speculation of it all. Apparently, this happened because the budget was reduced so much that NASA apparently couldn't go buy some films, which seems stupid. This is why a lot of people are skeptical of it. I think it's potentially very possible because of how much they defunded it, and we're not going to the moon anymore. And think about all this Apollo guys been there since the beginning. They're building on to the F1 engines. The Saturn V is building up, and now we're going to switch to this shuttle and go to low Earth orbit. Which, don't know. I don't want to disrespect any of the programs. The shuttle gave us the ISS, a lot of other things, but from this we filmed it. We filmed.
Okay,
over
past the
film.
Let's
past the film. What other things?
Yeah.
So another thing is like some of the films, which I think they're manipulated pictures. There's one picture of this rock. It's called the A rock. There's an A on the rock. But you can also find another picture of that same rock without the A on it. And they keep saying that this A rock is the original like picture of this rock. And they're like, okay, it was a set. It was set up.
Okay.
We just set it up.
Okay, sure. All right. So my argument, not necessarily for the film. I don't know a lot about the film. Okay. But, okay. If we're going to fake going to the moon, okay, first off, we're going to fake building a whole rocket.
The most powerful rocket.
The most powerful rocket, which we have the engines. We know how it worked. We know that.
We have film of it launching.
We have film of it launching. People watched it launch that are still alive. They watched it fly off. Not once, but with all the when did they start using the Saturn V? That was in Apollo 9?
Yeah, like 1960. I mean, the plans were built in while the Mercury mission was still
at least
the Mercury missions.
At least 9 times. At least 9 times the Saturn V was launched. Okay.
Oh, way more than that.
Okay, so at least 9 that we know of. So why continue to try to fake it? You did it once. You got away with it. Why would you continue to try to fake it?
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Also, you don't think that Russia would have called us out if we had faked it? They were watching us. They had the ability to track our rockets. They could know where we were at. They could see that kind of stuff. Everybody was watching. The whole world was watching. Why would we go through and fake it not once but 6 times? 7 times, including, Apollo 13 when they didn't land, and that's like the easiest thing to say to me that makes the most sense to me is if they had went one time and came back and never went again, it would be a lot harder of an argument. Also,
amen.
There's more than just the 3 astronauts. Like, we did go those multiple times. There's more than just Neil and Buzz and Mike Collins. There was all of these guys that went, and they did multiple missions up until that. Like, at what point do people think that it started being faked?
There is one more thing with that where so when Buzz, Mike, and Neil came back, there was an interview after, and they seemed super nervous and super just out of it.
Okay, I love that. I love that argument.
You love that, and they became alcoholics afterwards.
Okay.
Apparently.
Okay, so there's a whole can of worms I can get into there, but
yeah,
I'll just stick to the facts. Yes, those dudes were very wigged out when they came back, but
I would too.
Those guys just went somewhere that nobody had ever been before. They just saw the scale of the Earth. They realized how tiny we are. The Earth is the size of your thumb from the moon. That's how big everything you've ever known, everybody you've ever known, anything you've ever learned about history is the size of your thumb at arm's distance. That's insane. Okay? And they made it back. They crash landed into the ocean. They get pulled out. Were they immediately put into this press conference?
No. We're put in the MQF for 2 weeks. So they've been quarantined, and then astronauts also don't get as much sleep as the normal person all the time because they're working all the freaking time. So it's possible that these guys are just freaking tired during the interview and didn't want to talk to the press. And now that they're the most famous people in history, or some of them, they made history. Like, it makes sense why they were probably a little like, oh man, and had a few drinks afterwards, and they were apparently called alcoholics after that. So I don't know. Yeah,
and I mean, it's, to me, like, I think that anybody in that circumstance would be wigged out, freaked out.
Yeah.
Maybe they just got into a huge argument in the MQF. They were already together. They were together for a month, and I know that Buzz was already jealous of Neil for being the commander.
Yeah.
There was already some tension there before they even left. Buzz Aldrin wanted to be the commander of that ship.
Yeah.
He wanted to be it so bad.
Yeah.
And he didn't get it, and Neil got it. And, there was already tension. Now they have to spend 3 months together with, like, the size of a car together, maybe an RV.
And think before that, I mean, they were training for months, years.
So obviously they might have been tired of each other, and they were probably also just tired. How well were they sleeping next to these two other grown men? Were there even showers in the MQF?
Yes.
Like, okay, they had to share showers with these two other dudes. I don't think that it was a great situation. And I just think that just as simple as that is if you were going to fake something and you got away with it, don't do it 6 more times.
Yeah. Well, it also just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you believe in just human, genuine human characteristics of virtue that we've talked about since the beginning of time, which is honesty and being truthful, how are you going to convince 66,000, something like 60,000 engineers that even worked on the freaking rocket that you faked it?
Yeah,
the whole program
that worked on the rocket.
You can't convince them to all lie.
The dude's in mission control.
Yep.
The people receiving the broadcasts, the people that were did everything, that built the MQF, that built just the engines, that built the metal on the side of the Saturn V. The wives of the astronauts, their kids. All this stuff. Like, it's ridiculous to me, and that's all I want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's all you want to talk about. I could go down the rabbit hole even more.
Let's leave it at that.
Whoa, no. I want to say one thing to all those people that don't believe in the moon missions out there. The Earth is flat.
Well, that's a solid argument, and I don't think you can argue with that. So, you know what? Throw all that out the window.
I think it's people in this time there. I mean, we wanted to talk about in another episode about stress and depression and all that. It's people wanting to be different in a way and believe something else.
Yeah.
And it's something that's controversial, and it's very interesting. If you go down the rabbit hole, you will find videos, pictures, and so many things that people might have faked, though. They might have faked the fake. They might have faked the filming of it being filmed. You know what I mean? Like, the whole A-Rock thing. Man, you can Photoshop an A onto that rock from the original picture. Are you kidding me? An A on the rock? You got to be freaking kidding me.
Okay, and when it comes to the film, and the A's and that, okay, let's say that they went to the moon, they had a perfect mission, everything happened, but they come back and the video is just garbage. It's straight up trash. Like, you can't even see anything that's going on. Maybe the camera was busted. Maybe they cracked it. Maybe something crazy happened.
That's one of their other arguments, that it should have been worse footage than what it was.
So,
but that's
so now we just spent $1 billion on getting there, and now we don't even have good footage. It's like, we have to show something to the public. We just took half of their money. Like, we have to show them something.
Yeah.
So let's just make a quick set, film it so that we can appease the public, but everybody knows that we actually did it. I think that's just as logical.
Yeah.
Because I think anything could have happened with the filming. So anyway,
Anyway, we went
Can
to
we
the
move on?
moon. Yeah, we
Yes.
can move on. We went to the moon. I'm celebrating that. And let's move on.
He wouldn't be smoking that cigar right now if we didn't land on the moon. So that's a fact.
When you walk under a Saturn V for the first time, you'll believe it. I don't know how you don't. I mean, when I did it, I was like, oh, my God.
That's right.
This thing is ridiculous.
So back to taking that Saturn V all the way to Mars.
Oh, man, that would be crazy.
I kind of want to talk about, what it would take, to live on Mars. This is kind of moving away from, I feel like we kind of talked about, what would have happened. We might come back to that here in a minute. But
It's all speculation. What would
yeah, living on Mars. Well,
for the moon.
the moon, well, it wasn't speculation that we had the plans. The plans are
True.
there. The plans are
Yes.
real.
Yeah.
And so if we lived on Mars, if we got to Mars and we plan on going to Mars, one thing that has always been, confusing to me is, we can fake an atmosphere. Like people have ideas of how to build an atmosphere there, to figure out how to, to make it breathable and not so cold, maybe even comfortable. But what we can't fake is a magnetosphere.
Yeah.
The inner core of the planet is dead. There is no magnetosphere. The magnetosphere is what stops all of the radiation from the sun to getting to the earth. It stops us from being, fried, turning into fish sticks.
We already get fried as it is.
That's right. You stay out in the sun, you're getting burned. So, I don't understand how we could go to Mars, even if we were to be able to create the perfect atmosphere, how we're going to stop all of the solar radiation from getting, obviously, it's a little bit further away from the sun, but how much does that play into the role? How much does that play in?
Oh, man. I mean, you can go down this rabbit hole how it is technically a suicide mission.
Yeah.
Of right now, it takes 3 to 6 months with our current technology to get to Mars. Then Mars only aligns with Earth around the sun because they're on slightly different elliptical orbits where it only aligns with the Earth every 2 months or 2 years. And so going to Mars is literally a suicide mission. Not even talking about how those people need to survive on the planet we've never been to, well, except with the rovers. With our current technology, we don't have the technology to do that yet, and we need so many more advanced technologies. And then that long in outer space hasn't even been tested on one person. I mean, it's being tested right now. Christina Koch.
Well, the year
Or
in
Koch.
space, Scott Kelly.
Yeah,
Scott Kelly spent a year in space.
yeah. Well, we're trying to figure out what it also does to women's bodies now with Christina Koch.
That makes
sense. I keep sorry.
I'm also terrible at her last name. I've heard Cook. I've heard
Cook.
Coach.
Yeah.
I've heard Koch. I've heard it all. It's K-O. It's K-O-C-H.
Interesting enough, she actually might have went to the same college I did, UNCW.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I need to double check that, but I've heard that. I was like, what? That's cool. But anyway, we've only tested on Scott Kelly, where his vision started. Apparently, they don't know for sure, but across the line, men that go in outer space, they don't know if it's because more men been in outer space than women. We lose our eyesights real quick. Our vision is getting worse from
Okay.
that. And with all the muscle dysphoria and stuff as it is, you lose your muscle mass in outer space. Even with the 2.5 hours that they freaking work out in outer space as it is every single day, you still lose muscle mass and you have a hard time walking. So it's a whole different environment, and your body changes because your body is not used to the microgravity. And so even getting to Mars and staying on Mars that long, your body would still change. You would become Martian-like. Martian-like, your body would be changed to that atmosphere. And they say, there's that movie where that kid's born on Mars or whatever. His heart's too small, so when he comes back to Earth, he's literally dying because his heart's too small. So literally
Because he
change
doesn't
your
need to
body.
pump as much blood because there's not as much gravity, going through. Yeah.
But for women, they're trying to figure out how that affects women's bodies because men and women do biologically have different things and going on in the bodies, right?
Cody.
Yeah.
Hold on, you're stepping over a line there. You can't. I'm just kidding.
Well, the period stuff is interesting. Well, periods. So the period thing, they can take the pill and it starts a period, but they would have to take so many pills.
Let's call it. Well,
what do you want to call it? You want to call it something else?
So less of like, it seems like there's like a
the time of the month. I'm sorry.
That
saying
seems weird too. Yeah.
What you want to call it? What it is the period. Oh my gosh! Come on.
All right.
So get past the antics. We had to do that. So if they're ever off, if the pill doesn't work at any point in time, if they're ever off of it, it creates blood clots. It will kill them.
Oh.
Yeah, that's another problem with women being in outer space longer. So men lose their vision. Women, I mean, multiple things. Women might die from blood clots. Like it's dangerous. It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous, and we don't know everything still that affects our bodies.
I could see that. Probably men probably have a higher chance. Well, obviously, a higher chance of being infertile, because I know that just radiation, just from cell phones and that kind of stuff, it has played a role in making men infertile now, and how much radiation they get on. I forget how. You remember how much it was? It was like.
Oh, I have no clue.
It's a crazy number. It's like standing next to a microwave all day, being on the International Space Station.
Most likely, if they go to Mars all the way or spend that much time in outer space, they're going to get radiation poisoning. I mean, we're protected by the magnetosphere, as you said,
and you would think that the ISS
is
protected as well.
So,
So out there, you have no protection.
Nothing.
Wow.
So it's a crazy. We have so many technologies we need to develop. We need to figure out radiation. We need to figure out if we can manipulate gravity more, where we can make artificial gravity, which there's ideas about that. So they at least their bodies don't morph into whatever space is changing our whole bodies into. Because it just dissolves and becomes a blob, basically, if you just let a human sit there for long enough. So, yeah, we have a lot of things to figure out still. But I want to stay optimistic and say that we can still do it. Some crazy ideas to try to restart the core of Mars, and Elon Musk even proposed this idea, is to nuke it, to heat it up so much where it restarts the core, which is absolutely crazy.
Yes, that is nuts. And I've heard about that as well. But I also thought that nuking it was the whole point of nuking Mars, which I've also heard like negative, points of that as well. But I thought the whole point of that was to send up debris into the atmosphere and that kind of stuff to make it warmer, to make more of an atmosphere with all that CO2 and all of that. I thought I had no idea that it was supposed to restart the core.
Yeah, I mean that's the general idea. It does what you just said with all the debris and stuff and the CO2, and it can restart the core potentially. I mean we're dealing with so many properties here, and we're trying to manipulate climate and everything, and we still have just a basic understanding. I mean all this technology and getting to the moon and the space in general, it's only been developed in the last 150 years anyway.
Less than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even 150, is it?
I mean, with the intro to flight and everything and building up to it, yeah,
it's
like
true.
150.
That's
but
true,
it barely even that, though. You're right. You got a point. So
yeah, well, 1903 we had the first plane. We talked about that.
We talked about that. We don't need to bring that back up. What are you talking about?
Well, it's only 120 years for the plane, so
But thinking about how crazy it's been since we put the first person up in outer space in 1961, and then we get to the moon in 8 more years. Technically, with that, how fast that transition was with technology, we could have been to Mars by now. That kind of goes back on everything we were just saying before.
Yeah, I think
so.
Kind of switching it up here, they something cool that I think that we do as a species is that when we send something to Mars, and we have future plans to send, stuff to Europa. And I know I'm pretty sure just all like far satellites that go outside of Earth's orbit, probes, all of those actually get scrubbed completely bacteria free.
Right.
All of them get scrubbed to be completely bacteria free, especially on Mars, because we wanted to see if any life had ever been there before. So we can't know if life's been there before if we have this tiniest bit of bacteria on there and our sensors pick up, what's going on, on the rover. The rover is picking up this bacteria that's from Earth. All of a sudden, they're sending back, to Earth. Oh, we found bacteria. Here it is. So we scrub it completely clean. Another reason why we scrub it clean is because we don't want to accidentally mess up the bacteria that is there on Mars. Like if there was bacteria and it came in contact with our bacteria, it would probably destroy it. The same thing that, with the French explorers coming to South America, smallpox, wiping out the population with smallpox, with a disease that we had already overcame. We could come into contact with that bacteria, or the bacteria come in contact with ours, and it gets wiped out because of a small disease.
Well, there's some speculation that they did that on purpose with the smallpox. I mean, there's speculation that they did.
Okay. I feel like they probably didn't even know that they didn't have it, but I guess that there's probably I'm sure there.
I mean, chemical warfare has been a thing since the beginning of time. I mean, Genghis Khan was sending the bubonic plague with dead soldiers across enemy walls with catapults. So I mean, I don't know.
So
but I say your point, yes, and it's interesting though that the Indian space in the probe that they just crashed recently into the moon had the tardigrades on it, though.
Oh.
Yeah, you remember about that? You remember hearing about that with the water bears? This is tardigrades, water bears. They just had it on the probe, and they're like, "Oh, let's just crash it." And there's a lot of speculation that they survive, or they could have survived maybe because it's water bears. They literally can survive in almost any environment on Earth. So
tardigrades were found on the outside of the International Space Station.
Yeah. Life is found. This is brought up so if we do find other life on another planet or moon in our solar system, there's a lot of speculation what that really means for us, how easy it is for life to form. And it's a very deep question because we have found tardigrades growing on the outside of the International Space Station. We have found microorganisms living in the volcanic underwater vents and extreme temperature. I mean, that's where the first basic this life formed. We found it though in nuclear reactors, feeding off of the nuclear reactors in places we never knew life could exist, or microorganisms could even exist. And there's so much water on Europa and places like Titan, the methane. There's so much. It's. I think on Mars there's water there.
That's something that's funny you bring up the water on Mars, because part of the thing that they are talking about is that once we make it to Mars, that we could melt the ice caps and turn that into liquid water.
Yeah,
and it is possibly drink it.
Yeah,
and survive off of it.
Yeah,
but what's the chances that we would be able to drink that water? We already can't drink 99% of the earth on water on Earth. We already can't drink it. It's too salty. It doesn't work for our bodies. We can't drink that. So what's the chances we can drink Martian water?
We upgrade the technology so we can.
It's all
about the technology.
We can desalinate. That is a thing. But it's such a process and takes so much energy that it's not even worth it here on Earth. How much energy would it take to make the Martian water drinkable?
I think we could do it. I think we could do it. I'm staying optimistic about it.
I think that it's possible, yes.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people just think, oh, yeah, we'll just melt the ice caps and we'll just have water and we'll just drink it. Like,
there's no walk in the park just going to Mars anyway, so,
It's true. There's just obstacle after obstacle that is going to happen. And, I think that as a human race, we can overcome and we can adapt and we can make it.
Well, a lot of people are like, why? Why should we go to Mars? It's pointless. Let's keep working with the Earth and climate change and figure that stuff out. And you know what, though? For every $1 we put in the space program, we get $10 back. At least that's what I keep hearing.
Well, that's because of the technology that we create working with the space technology is that it turns into commercial products that we use.
But it helps everything. It advances so much. all the electronics in your phone, your sneakers right now, your shirt, parts of your shirt, your bed, memory foam, everything. It's in everything. Power drills they brought to the moon. The battery on the back of the freaking rover. It's like, it takes so long to develop the technology. You might as well go send it up there, some primitive form of it. And then, 50 years later, it's going to be used in such a degree. It's going to develop even more.
It's true.
It's risky. It's a lot of money, but you might as well just do it. I think. That's the whole reason. That's one of the biggest motivations we're talking about this today, and that we're so excited about space because it's freaking crazy. Space can be linked to everything on the planet. Every technology has something to do in outer space. And we're solving so many medical anomalies. We are figuring out more electronics. Is the final frontier. It really is. It's the next thing. It's the next America.
Yes.
It is the next. It is not even just the next America. We can find more resources. We can build better technologies. We need to just do it. Just keep going. And people think the space race is dead. Or the space program is dead. Oh my God, it's more alive than ever.
Well, I think that the commercial space race is on.
Yes.
Is on now.
Yes.
When it comes to government space race, it kind of is dead.
In a way, it's not the same. However, there's still military satellites being sent up. China has all their stuff sent up, and we're like kind of not battling them militarily, but secret space satellites that are up there for both. The Air Force has a plane that keeps going, or basically a shuttle that's totally AI that they keep sending up for months and months at a time. I can't remember the name of this thing. It just landed recently after I think a year or 2 year long mission, something like that. I don't quote me on that, but we are doing so many more things in outer space than people really think. At least in low Earth orbit. We sent a probe to the sun recently. That was the retirement of the Delta IV Heavy from ULA. The Falcon Heavy is sending up Starlink satellites to try to make 5G and create a better internet for all of us. And they sent them a car. They sent some military satellites as well. The Falcon Heavy is the most powerful rocket we have right now. It's not as powerful as the Saturn V, obviously, but it sent something to Mars.
Speaking about the car is hilarious. The car, of course, it's hilarious, and
it's freaking hilarious.
But that car was supposed to go to Mars orbit.
Mm-hmm.
That was its trajectory. That was its original plan.
They overshot it.
And now it has its own orbit in our solar system.
Yeah.
That can be seen. We won't be able to see this car again for apparently thousands of years. But eventually, if it doesn't get ripped apart by solar radiation, which is very likely.
Well, it's already white. All the paint peeled off, all the red paint because of the radiation. So apparently.
Well, worse things could have happened. But
exactly. Yeah, good point. Hit by an asteroid.
As long as it doesn't get destroyed, that we will be able to see that car again, like thousands of years from now, when our rotations finally line back up. It has a very strange path.
Yeah.
That goes farther out than Mars, back.
Makes sense.
Back through. Yeah. If they overshot it, it goes farther out than Mars and back around. And but. Them launching that was the best thing ever because they just had to have that dummy payload.
Yeah.
And why send up something dumb when you can send up something amazing that would get everybody's attention?
Yeah.
And if Elon can be, you can criticize him for a lot of things. A lot of people don't like him.
Oh man, I was watching Elon in the beginning. So many people hate him, and I just knew. I was just like, this guy is something else. I'm not trying to claim that I was like, I saw Elon, but I loved this mentality. I was like, oh my God,
well,
this guy.
If he can do anything, he can get people excited about space. Again, the people that lined up, the people that went and watched that launch of the car.
Yeah.
With the first time that they launched the Falcon Heavy,
That was broadcasted more than like any other space thing that they ate. One of the Falcon Heavy launches recently, they were returning the astronauts from the ISS, and nobody knew about it because the Falcon Heavy was launching that day. It has more people behind like watching it than
I'm sure they had more people like there in Florida watching that launch, probably just as many as the Apollo missions.
Probably.
And we're getting people excited about space again. When it comes to NASA, there's just so many budget cuts, so many leadership changes on who gets to decide on what's happening. And when your budget gets changed, then you have to scrap things, and it just keeps happening over and over and over. And it's just been happening for 50 years to where we haven't really done a bunch other than the shuttles.
Yeah.
So
I've talked to a few people that we might be able to have on, and I mean we're gonna have engineers on that might talk about all the other. They've had Mars missions before. The Constellation program, while it was canceled, I've met these engineers and they said they might want to be on, and it would be interesting to see what they say about all that too. It's a lot of controversy. It's not, and there's a very big pit again from Elon, a pit up against NASA, like who's going to do it first. It's not. They have to work together.
But they've had a partnership since 2013.
Yes,
2013. I'm pretty sure the year 2013, they decided that SpaceX got the contract to take astronauts to the ISS. And they are so close with the Dragon capsule.
Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't know about the contract to go.
They did.
Well, the contract for the cargo to go. I don't know about people.
Well, they've already put, not 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
They put NASA astronauts in SpaceX spacesuits.
Oh, in the next 5 years, we're going to be launching, I confidently, I can say, in the next 5 years, probably way less. We're going to be launching astronauts from American soil again in a SpaceX capsule or Boeing.
Well, part of the reason is because of how much Russia is charging us to send our astronauts up.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Okay, so the first time they ever launched our astronauts, 2011, we stopped using the shuttles. The shuttles were done. And, we don't have a way to send up our astronauts, but we have this contract signed with Russia that says we will always have at least one American astronaut in the International Space Station at all time.
Yeah.
So we have to continue to send these astronauts up. We only have one option, and it's Russia, and we are just going to, carpool. And it made sense.
Yeah.
It made sense at first. And it made sense because it was cheap. It was much cheaper than building our own rockets. It was actually only $21 million. Well, I say only. It's still a lot. $21 million per seat.
What?
To go on the Soyuz rocket and ride it to the International Space Station. In the beginning.
I didn't know that.
$21.4 million.
Whoa.
One thing I'm good at is numbers for money. $21.4 million was the cheapest we ever paid Russia to send an astronaut up. And, we got to do it every 6 months. That's how long people stay up there. They're launching rockets.
So for the audience, 21 million, how much now?
That was in 2011. We're almost in 2020 now. So 9 years of inflation, $72 million.
Yeah.
I think it might all be up to $78 million in 9 years.
Yeah.
Guess whose rockets haven't changed in 30 years?
No, longer than 30 years, bro. They were launching the Soyuz like the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah. Those rockets have not changed in a very long time, but somehow our seats got $50 million more expensive.
Boeing just came out, I think, with a price for theirs, for their
60.
crew capsule. 60 million?
60 million.
I thought when they first came out, it was like 80 million. It was more than Russia.
Was it more than Russia?
Yeah. They might be trying to get it down now because they had a lot of criticism. They're like, you're more than Russia. Are you kidding me?
But you know what? What has SpaceX? SpaceX's number?
No, I don't know.
55 million.
Oh, yeah.
55 million to send it up in the Dragon capsule. But guess what? Their SRBs are reusable. I never thought about it until I watched this documentary recently where it cost $55 million, but If we reuse that rocket 10 times, that launch is only $5.5 million. That rocket that cost $55 million to make,
Oh, $55 million to make, or you mean $55 million? So
$55 million would be the original launch, or how much it would be cost to send the first seat.
Okay.
So the next seat, if we use that same rocket, it should only be, $28 million, $14 million, $7 million. As long as we can keep reusing that same rocket,
yeah,
the cost is going to go down. If you basically, if you build $100 million rocket and you reuse it 100 times, each launch, it's only going to cost $1 million.
yeah. I don't know how much the Falcon Heavy cost. I know how much.
Well, we're not using the Falcon Heavy to get to the International Space Station.
What are they using? Falcon 9?
Yes.
Oh.
That's just one SRB. That's all it needs.
Oh.
They don't need a huge thing to take up the Dragon capsule.
Really? I didn't realize
The
that.
Falcon Heavy is supposed to be able to go to the moon and to Mars.
Okay. That makes sense. Well, so this is crazy. So, not trying to bash Boeing, NASA. We're all doing good stuff and working towards science and all that. The SLS rocket is quite a rocket. They just renamed it, I think, too. Sorry, forgot that. But SLS rocket.
They renamed the SLS?
Yeah, they renamed the whole program. It's the
To Artemis.
Artemis.
But it's
Yeah.
still called the SLS rocket.
I'm pretty sure they just renamed the rocket. I might be wrong on that. I don't know. I have to fact check.
I think the Artemis is the program, like how Apollo was the program, but Saturn V was the rocket. SLS is the rocket.
Well, SLS
Artemis.
is Space Launch System, so they extended it out to fifth graders again because they do that a lot, which is pretty cool. To rename the rocket actually, and I think they renamed the rocket recently, or they're in the process of it. We're not caught up on everything we're talking about because we're going down a crazy amount of information anyway.
Because the STS is the name of the shuttle program, so
Yeah.
that would make sense
Yeah.
that they would rename the SLS to the Artemis. The Artemis is the program to go back to the moon, though.
Yeah. But the SLS was Space Launch Systems, and they said the Space Launch Rocket. So I think they renamed the rocket. Anyway, the SLS rocket that we're supposed to go back to the moon, to Mars, and potentially to the asteroid belt, which is the plan anyway, costs about $1 billion to send up.
Wow.
Guess how much a Falcon Heavy at its... Okay, so $1 billion to send up 260,000 pounds, and it changes per whether you're sending up to low Earth orbit or all the way to Mars. It's different because of how far it goes and how much and how heavy it is and stuff like that. And this is just, to my knowledge, low Earth orbit or to the moon. Gosh, the numbers. There's just so many numbers and calculations in it. 260,000 pounds, which is a lot. I think the Saturn V is just a little under that. Mm-hmm. $1 billion. Cheaper than Saturn V, cheaper than, a little cheaper than shuttle, something like that.
Well, they gave we were talked about earlier. They gave $1 billion to get to the moon.
Yeah, well, that was back in the 60s.
So
it's
yeah,
irrelevant
it's super
now.
cheap. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's irrelevant now compared to how much money it takes to send all that to the moon.
Yeah,
because of inflation and stuff. Anyway, 1,260,000 pounds. Falcon Heavy maxed out 160,000 pounds. $150 million.
Wow.
Nearly a tenth of the price.
Wow.
And we're reusing all those boosters. And, well, for the most part, they're still... I think they finally landed the main booster. But the two side boosters, they can land. They've landed it multiple times and reused it multiple times.
The one that... The recent launch, they were using the same... like heat shield like 5 times, something like that.
Yeah.
Where they're using, they're trying to reuse every single part, and they're trying to, just keep reusing the same part until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, man, all right.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, they were supposed to launch and there's so many the SLS was supposed to launch this year and last year apparently.
Okay.
And they pushed it. Anyway,
let's take it back a step.
Okay.
So when we were talking about how we scrub down our rovers and our probes, and we make sure there's no bacteria on them, just think that this is the first time we're ever going to a new planet. And we're already worried about what possible effects we would have on the life that might be there, even if it's bacterial. And when it comes to Europa, Europa, if you don't know, Europa is one of Saturn's moons. It is a complete ice ball, but it's the gravitation of Saturn actually morphs the moon. It's the gravity of it is so big that it actually makes the moon, change shapes as it's moving, which would make the core hot. So if you have ice on the outside and you have a hot core, somewhere in the middle, you're going to have some liquid water. So that's why we think that there's possibly, all we think we need for life to form is heat and water. So that's why you think there might be life there, and we're going to possibly, we're planning on sending a probe there to figure out what's going on. But we want to scrub it clean of bacteria. So if we are already planning on working on making sure that no life ever gets harmed of something that we send to another planet, I love this. This is why I don't think aliens, if they were to exist, would ever be a threat. Because we're in our baby steps of working towards going to new planets. We are already terrified of messing anything up, hurting anybody, affecting them in any sort of sense. Why, 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years from now, would we be any different? The people working on this are some of the smartest people on the planet. The people that would be going further out and possibly interacting with some sort of life, whether it being, sentient or, intelligent or not, they would also be the smartest people working on getting there. They are obviously not going to try to mess anything up. So why would, if we were to advance 1,000 years from now and be able to go from solar system to solar system, why would aliens come here and mess things up for us? I think that's just it's just so cut and dry because we're already worried about that. If it was something that actually had feelings and could tell us to stop, of course we wouldn't mess any of that up. So when people are worried about alien invasions and aliens trying to blow us up, and why would they waste the energy? Energy is going to be the currency of, I think, of future, star traveling generations. That's the only thing that we need to keep going is energy.
Yeah.
Why would they waste the energy on blowing us up? The only thing that we could possibly, have to offer them would be, they don't need gold. Gold's all in the asteroid belt. They don't, all the minerals that we have here, the precious metals, are all around in the atmosphere, or in the solar system, and probably, every solar system, that they could just, open one of their doors and close them. Now they have one of those asteroids inside of their ship, and they could just mine it, take all the gold out, send it back out, gold free. The only thing they could possibly want from Earth would be liquid water. That would be probably the most rare thing. Liquid drinkable water. if they work the same way as us.
Yeah.
But, by that point, there'd be ways to probably synthesize water and, figure out different ways to go about, having a need for water. So that's why if you were ever worried about an alien invasion and them coming and blowing us up or anything like that, just think that we are already worried about messing up even bacteria on other planets. I think that's amazing.
That's an interesting perspective. I think you present a very good argument, a very good, strong argument against that. And a lot of people can pit up a lot of controversy to that, and you could bash down because your argument's strong there. But however, honestly, if they just wanted to blow us up with their Death Star, they could. It'd be easy.
Yeah, it'd be easy.
we wouldn't even know. It'd just be gone.
Totally.
It's just like a nuke,
Yeah.
So, it's possible too that they don't want to mess with us because they want to see what happens.
Yeah.
They want to see how we develop. They're kind of watching us, almost like zoo. They could have put us here. That's all a bunch of different things. You just don't even know. I really like that argument though, and here at Rocket City podcast, we're trying to ease your mind on some things.
Definitely.
Moon landing, real. Mars is hard. Let's do it though. You think aliens gonna blow us up? Dude, just chill out, man. At least we got some time, I think, before we even meet the first one. We probably won't even meet the first, or they already met us. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who really knows? But yeah, I think you presented.
They
really
definitely don't want to blow us up. If they're gonna do anything,
they would have done it already.
They would have done it already.
They would have done it already.
Yeah,
they could have blown Mars up. Life on Mars before.
There actually is. There's this big scar on Mars that like doesn't really make a lot of sense.
What are you talking about?
On the surface of Mars, there's a basically looks like a giant gash taken out of Mars, which I have heard, from some controversial sources that it doesn't look very natural.
Interesting.
That some people think that it looks like the impact from a bomb, a nuke, some sort of war.
I never heard that. Well, Mars is very just odd in general. I mean, with is it Valley Marineris? I might be wrong. It's a Grand Canyon, large as it stretches from one end of the United States to the other.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then the largest. Oh, is that what you're talking about?
It doesn't look like. It doesn't look natural.
Oh,
it's just basically a giant pool, and it looks like a scar. Basically, it looks like something impacted it.
It's possible that it's like the ocean existed over that, and that's like the bottom of that ocean, if the ocean did exist.
But this is like,
that makes sense.
It's a small part. It's a small portion. It wouldn't be like the size of our oceans, so it would be. It's different.
I get your point, and maybe
there's a lot more that I like. I don't even know about. I just remember hearing that. That this big scar on Mars was very strange.
If you're really concerned about like why we're going to Mars and stuff like that out there, and there's no point, it's just a bunch of rust ball. It's very interesting. Like, why is this there? Why does it have the biggest volcano in our solar system? Why is it like a desert now when obviously there's signs that water because there's water already on Mars actually flowed on Mars before? It's interesting.
Well, there's something that's just going on. Erosion marks of water.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah,
man. I think when we go back and talk about when we were talking about earlier about how easily we adapt or easily we take things for granted.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about this for a little bit. How we take things for granted. I think that is probably one of the biggest reasons for our lack of that chemical in our brain that makes us happy. Serotonin. Serotonin, and we immediately take things for granted, and we stop appreciating things immediately. Even when we're going to the moon, it only takes you 6 times to you're like, why are we still going to the moon? Like, come on, boys. Like, we've been there. Get some pictures. Come on home. Like, quit wasting our money. We got things going on here. It's just just stop taking things for granted. It's like we get accustomed to things so fast. That is why I think that we have such a problem with depression and people being sad all the time. And
oh man, you're bringing this up already. All right,
this is what I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
This is what he wanted to say. He brought this up earlier today, and he wanted to talk about it today. So let's do it. Let's go.
Like, we have just made everything so easy with technology. Everything is easy. Everything that you do in your life would be a plight back in the day. Would be a day's journey to do just one of the things that you do in your life. Driving to work, which, is maybe 20 miles away, 30 miles away, that would take you, a day to walk to, comfortably. All the way down to just making a pizza. If you want a pizza right now, what do? 15 minutes later, oh, there's my pizza. Wow, that was hard. Like, making a pizza, even just 200 years ago. Just think about this. 200 years ago, making a pizza. Okay, You want to make a pizza. You're just a regular dude. You're a blacksmith. You make swords all day, but man, you have a hankering for some pizza. You are going, okay, what's the first thing you need? You need a base. You need some dough. Okay, you're a wheat man. So you're going to want some wheat dough. All right, now we need to find a wheat farmer. You're a blacksmith. You know a wheat farmer. He lives down the way. Okay, I'm going to make him a little hammer. I'm going to make him a hammer to trade him a hammer for some wheat. Okay? I made my hammer. I'm gonna walk down. It took me about 2 hours. Now I'm at the wheat farmer. I knock on his door. He comes out and I say, "Hey man, I'm trying to make a pizza." He's like, "What's a pizza?" It doesn't matter. I am trying to make some food for myself. I'd like some wheat, please. I don't need much, just enough to make about a bowl. And he gives it to me. Okay, you can see where this is going. I've gotten the wheat. I take it home. I mash it up. I turn it into flour. Now I need some water. Okay, I live next to a creek. You know, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna go get some water. I get my bucket that I made myself. Took me a week to make. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna scoop up some water. Oh, this water's disgusting. I can't drink this water. It's got fish in it and all kinds of stuff, bacteria, algae. You're gonna have to boil that water. All right. Now we need a fire. All right, let's just assume you're a blacksmith. You got a fire ready. Okay, let's skip the fire part of chopping down a tree.
Yeah, there you go.
Making an axe and chopping down a tree. Okay, now we're going to boil some water. We got the clean water. Bam, bam. Okay, let's speed it up a little bit. All right, now we got the dough. Where we mixed up the dough. We're tossing the dough. We got to sell some dough. Everybody knows dough is not a pizza. All right, we need a lot of other things on here. Let's just say we're making a pepperoni pizza. Make it simple, not supreme. Don't make me talk about a supreme pizza. All right, pepperoni pizza. Okay, now we need. I'm a tomato-based man myself. So some people like the oils. So I'm gonna go get some. Now I need to find another farmer. This guy needs to grow tomatoes. So I guess I got to make myself something to trade for him. So I'm gonna spend a couple hours. I want to make myself maybe a little shovel for him to use. So I'm sure he could use a shovel. He's a tomato farmer. So I'm going to make myself a shovel. I'm going to go down there, speed it up a little bit. I trade him that for the tomatoes. I bring it back. I mash up those tomatoes. That's not too hard as making dough. I mash up those tomatoes. I spread it all over my dough. My dough's getting hard at this point. I spread it all over. Okay. You can't have pizza without cheese. You can see where this is going.
Yeah.
We are 3 days in now. What did I have to do to make a pizza? I'm sad. Like, literally, that is what you do. And living was just so hard. We are the same people that we were 150 years ago. Yes, maybe, like, our IQ is increasing because we learned so much, but that's because we've gotten taught so much. I think that if you took somebody from that time and you put them here, you could teach them the exact same things. And I think that we're the same people. So we had to go through those same struggles where you wanted something delicious to eat. It would take you days, maybe a week to make a pizza. Like, I could order one in 15 minutes and it will be at my house. I have to move 10 yards, like, and move my thumb. Like, we take things for granted. That's really the whole point, is that if you just think about everything if you just put yourself, what you're about to go do, and put yourself 150 years from now, or ago, 150 years ago, you will, realize just every little thing that the technology that you had no part in making, how easy it makes your life. So stop taking things for granted. And, appreciate what you got. You got more technology in your phone than the Saturn V had, and
I wanted to end this with my cigar stopping, but that's just a stop because of that. No, that was good. Yes, I agree. I see your point of view. I think it's easier to make a pizza now with just our current technology. But yeah, we do take things for granted, for sure. And this how much goes into it. How much goes into everything. And you're just going to click your button on your phone, not care, and go watch your Netflix show, you know? And maybe that's why I would like to lead into the problem with happiness in our society and stuff like that.
Totally.
But I don't think I want to go down that rabbit hole right now because that's a whole nother episode.
That's true. We're getting a little long here.
Yeah. We're getting a little long.
Oh, we're about our time.
We're about the time. But we have a lot of information this episode, and I think that was a good end because we're gonna wrap it up here. But to sum it all up, you know, we are going further and farther every day. Don't take it for granted because it's crazy. We're being left behind. Information's changing so fast. If you're graduating today or in however many years, all the information you learned your freshman year in college, it's already outdated. You take things for granted. People are unhappy. 85% of the workforce is not happy with their own jobs. Suicide rate and depression's high. And yeah, we take things for granted. We are going to go to Mars. We're going to try to. It's going to be hard. Hopefully that fire keeps going and there's a whole nother race towards it and inspires a lot of you for that. We talked about how we appreciate the space history that we've already been through and what it's brought us in our cell phones, in our sneakers, in our beds. And man, we are living some ungodly times, the golden age. And I hope it doesn't end. I hope it keeps going. And a lot of people think it's going to end, but I don't know. We've been sitting here in this golden age for a little bit now, you know? And I'd rather be optimistic about the negative.
Definitely.
Because, my God, I don't know how you live day to day thinking this world's going to stop or blow up or aliens going to destroy us or stuff like that.
Just imagine if everybody was optimistic and everybody was like, wow, I think tomorrow's going to be great.
Man, how far
what would happen
Yeah.
if everybody thought that?
Yeah.
I think tomorrow would be great.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can only change how you feel.
Yeah.
All you can do is change yourself and change your own mentality.
Yeah.
You can't, you can try your hardest, but you can't change other people. You have to be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah. Because if you change yourself, you will change other people. You will. You just will. You think Elon Musk hasn't gone through a lot of change? The man works 90 hours a week. Man sleeps in his freaking Tesla factory. He's changing the world. Change yourself. Do better. Don't be hard on yourself, though. Don't take things for granted.
That's right.
Man, I think this was my favorite episode so far.
Me too.
Yeah. So
it's only going to get better, folks.
It's only going to get better. We have a lot of guests coming on shortly, too. And Dillon, it's been a pleasure. And this has been amazing. Finally finished that damn wall.
Looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. We're trying to change the world. That's the whole reason for the Rock City podcast. So, Dillon, thanks.
I didn't know we were trying to change the world, but I mean, I hope we do. But
I want to change the world.
That was the whole point of the podcast. But
everything you just went down the rabbit hole, yeah, with pizza, yeah, we are trying to change the world. I think.
I mean, it would be nice, but that's not what. That was not what my intent.
That's fine. Well, what's your intent?
Make people laugh and maybe have some
gratitude.
Yeah, a little bit of gratitude.
That can change the world, bro. You have no idea what implications it's going to do.
All right, man.
Yeah, it's been good, man. Thanks for listening in. You guys have a good day.